Alrighty, welcome one and all. Good to see some folks from across the pond here. Alrighty, welcome. Okay, there we go again. Sounds good. Sounds good. Loud and clear. Loud and clear. What's up, Thor? What's up, Josh? What's up, Antidote Magical Thinking? Ringling Gate? Aphrodite, Glenn, Gia, Sarah. What is going on today, my friends? I'm not going to keep you from long. How many slides do I have? Oh my goodness, this must be a record for recent presentations. Only 118 slides. So if you've got activities to attend to, I will let you go shortly. All right, so maybe an hour and a half is what I'm thinking. What's up, Janet? What's up, Jay Heretico? All right, we're going to get started in 4 minutes, all right? So everybody get settled. Everybody get settled. What's up, Just Teasing? What is up? All right, just bumped up. And this will be available as an archive as soon as we're finished. And I will be adding time codes in as, when we're done as well. Thank you, Tom. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see all of you. So rather lovely day here. It was rather Lovecraftian yesterday. We had winds like you wouldn't believe, but I love when it's dark and misty and windy. Oh my goodness. I feel like I am in a Lovecraft film. Okay. Oh my goodness. The Scots are in the house. I love it. I love it. 2-minute warning, folks. 2-minute warning. 33 million miles. Of course. Oh, of course. Oh, my goodness. Yes. One-minute warning, folks. 1-minute warning. Everybody settled? Everybody settled? Yes. Grew up a fellow mousehole. Love to see it. Love to see it. All right. All right, folks, this has been a crazy, crazy month, as you are well familiar with. And I had no idea that any of this was going to be going down when I began the Epstein live stream in maybe early mid November. I had no idea we were going to be seeing all this stuff going on today. And I guess I was aware of the deadline, but I didn't realize how it was going to all pan out. My belief is that this is all the usual ritual preparations for war. I don't need to remind anybody that war is in the air. And unfortunately, Europe thinks it's going to be able to pick a fight with Russia and China. And I think it will be very, very sadly mistaken. And I'm not too thrilled about all the belligerence towards Venezuela. Not that I care about Venezuela, but I care about my own country, obviously. And I'm not really too happy all this is going down. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But also to observe the celebrations of this Atlas comet that came in from elsewhere. And if you remember Heaven Upside Down in Las Vegas in October 1st, 2017, about 2 weeks after that, we saw the announcement of Oumuamua, the visitor from Vega, which didn't turn out to be Vega, but of course, I don't even think they know where these things are coming from. But this Atlas object is said to have come from the direction of Sagittarius, which is the first horseman, right? The pale horse, the archer, the horseman of war. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. I'm just going to scooch down my levels a wee tad. There we go. All right. All righty. So here we go. Let's get this party started, all right? As I said, this started with my Epstein live stream, which really became more and more focused on Ghislaine because it just became increasingly obvious. And I think if you've seen the pictures that have been released today, it's unbearably obvious who wore the pants in that family, all right? Or in that partnership. Ghislaine was running the show. I've come to see Jeffrey Epstein. I can't be the first one who's made this observation, but I've come to see him as the evil Mr. Rourke from Fantasy Island, with his own Fantasy Island. But of course, there's another character we're going to meet who also has his own private island. So we are definitely looking at some weirdness, all right? So this all started with the Ghislaine Asylum live stream, the ritual killing of Jeffrey Edward Epstein, all right? Now, as I argued in that stream, this was a scapegoat ritual. And guess who got to play the scapegoat? Mr. Epstein. And Azazel was played by another familiar face. That gentleman on the left. And notice that part of this ritual was symbolic castration, right? They were both said to have deformed genitals, very small deformed genitals. That is a symbolic castration. So before these goats were made scapegoats, they were symbolically castrated, okay? Castrated. And Mr. Weinstein is playing the Azazel role. So, here we go. Now, if you remember, Jeffrey Epstein, we discussed this in a live stream, had said that his cellmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, had tried to kill him on July 23rd, 2019, and then reneged on those claims. But I very, very much believe him for extremely obvious reasons, all right? July 23rd. Now, there is Mr. Tartaglione. That's the kind of guy, I don't know which is the before and after. Sometimes when dudes stop with the roids, they get much smaller, as Mr. Tartaglione on the right is. But notice they both have the dogs, the larger dog and the lesser dog. You could say the major dog and the minor dog. This is the kind of person you put in a cell with somebody who you want to be unalived, all right? Now, the murder attempt, or the first murder attempt, was on July 23rd, which marks the traditional peak of the dog days of summer, which have to do with Sirius in Canis Major, which I guess would be the dog on the right, and Canis Minor, the dog on the left. Okay, and if people don't see the ritualism in this, I can't help them. I just can't help them anymore. I'm really very rapidly losing my patience with a lot of these people on social media who get little bits of information and think they know everything. And in fact, they know what they're led to know. All right. Anyhow, but this is Canis Major and Canis Minor. All right. The dog days. And we talked about the dog days with Anne Heche. Another ritual sacrifice 3 years later. All right. And we talked about this quote, of course, Julie K. Brown. A lot of Julie Browns, downtown Julie Brown, the singer Julie Brown, Homecoming Queen's Got a Gun. Epstein never did anything. Maxwell did it for him. And Virginia Guerfia said something to the same extent, that Ghislaine was Geppetto and Epstein was Pinocchio. Now, all you have to do, again, is look at the pictures, and it's just so clear. It's so obvious who was in charge of the evil fantasy island, right? Now, we talked about Ghislaine was the creation of her incredibly evil father, Robert Maxwell. We'll be talking about him again. We'll be touching on him. Just look at this picture, and you know exactly what's going on. Ghislaine is taking the place of the mother, who's obscured there on the left-hand side of the screen, right? Ghislaine was not only the daughter of Robert Maxwell, but was clearly the consort as well. We'll put it politely, all right? We'll put it politely. But she was wearing the pants, and she had been trained from a very early age by a master sociopath in the fine arts of controlling others, all right? And it all ended extremely badly for Maxwell. All right. So, and again, 2 months after the ritual killing of Jeffrey Epstein, we had Event 201, also in New York, right? Midtown New York, not too far from one of the Trump properties, Event 201, that Bill Gates was at the forefront of, was he not? Okay? So, I don't think the timing of that is coincidental, and I told you in that first live stream why I do not. And here we go. There is Jeffrey Epstein. Every time I see him, he looks so goofy and silly. He was having a great time. He was the MC. He was the front man. Or, as it was said, he was Pinocchio. And there, of course, is Bill Gates, Bal Gates. And on the left-hand side of your screen is Summers. Larry Summers, who has got it in the neck career-wise for sure. So he is a auxiliary sacrifice scapegoat in this whole ritual. Now, on December 1st, I had talked about how the whole Lovecraft angle was really starting to blow my mind. I was just seeing too many connections with Lovecraft, and they didn't make sense. And I'm sure a lot of people were like, why in God's name is he talking about Lovecraft? And of course, the events of the past 3 weeks have borne that out, I would argue. All right. Now, we talked about Ghislaine's Lovecraft tour. She was living with her husband in Manchester by the Sea on Cape Ann, which was the setting of a Lovecraft story. She was held at the Merrimack County Jail, Merrimack being the Miskatonic, and then she was finally imprisoned at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Red Hook, Brooklyn. That's enemy action, okay? That is not coincidental, and we'll see why. Actually, we did see why, but we'll see why with further events as well, all right? Now, we talked about her Terramar, which people have said was a scam. I completely disagree. I think this was part of her religious beliefs, and I explained that at great length. I will review it briefly here. But Terramar, which she believed was a country in the middle of the ocean, all right, seasteading. And Terramar, of course, is the Spanish synonym for EarthSea, okay? Ursula K. Le Guin, her novels, fantasy novels. And of course, Ursula K. Le Guin went to high school with Philip K. Dick and wrote The Lathe of Heaven in his honor, okay? So there's EarthSea, Terramar. And there it is again, Terramar, the Spanish translation, Los Libros de Terramar, the books of Terramar. And in the French, La Société de Terramar, which is the Wizard of Terramar, okay? So very clear where she was getting this idea from, all right? Now, she talked about how she was enamored with Jacques Cousteau. Two of the Jacques, his daughter and his granddaughter, I believe it is, ended up in the Epstein-Ghislaine orbit, as we discussed previously. She said that she began diving when she was 9. This book of the Terramar series was released when she was 9 years old. The Tombs of Adawan, young girl in the Kargish Empire who is taken while still a child to be the high priestess to the Nameless Ones, which comes straight out of Lovecraft. Her existence at the tombs is a lonely one, deepened by the isolation of being the highest ranking priestess. Or in Ghislaine's case, the favorite daughter or the favorite child of Robert Maxwell, but also in isolation, had a very lonely and isolated life and found herself at the mercy of her father's advances. Okay, so this is all plain as can be. All right, this is where Terramar comes from. Now, we talked about the rather terrible TV movie done for the Sci-Fi Network back in the day. And there is Isabella Rossellini to bring the song to the siren in, of course, right? And that actress in the center played, what's the character's name again? Tanar. Okay, that is Tanar. Now, as we said, which is still mind-boggling to me, that actress is Kristen Kreuk, who was very deeply embedded in the NXIVM sex cult, okay? The other sex trafficking operation that went down around the same time, no pun intended. And of course, the adorable, not so adorable there, Allison Mack, who had met Kristen Kreuk when they were on Smallville, okay? And Kristen Kreuk actually enlisted Allison Mack, and Allison Mack became, in the words of many, Keith Raniere's Ghislaine Maxwell, all right? She's recently been released from prison, all right? Released from prison. Now, the NXIVM cult, another private island. Yes, Richard Branson's private island hosted sex parties by NXIVM, and there is Allison Mack in peak adorability. Yes, the beauty of evil, let's just say. But but they partied on Branson's private island. And Branson, boy, is he tied in with all of this in a big way. This is very interesting. We talked about these ridges in the Caribbean, okay? And we can see here that Branson's private island is on the right and Little St. James is on the left, but they are both in the little chain of islands. They are in the same chain of islands, which means they would have been part of the same mountain range, okay? Same mountain range. There is Richard Branson with Sarah Bronfman, who was the, I guess, the bagwoman for Keith Raniere, getting money from the Bronfman liquor family dynasty, okay? So very powerful and connected woman there with Richard Branson. Necker Island, I love that, Necker, like they go there to neck, right? Like, remember, you used to use that term in school? Yeah, okay, all right, okay, I'm sure Richard Branson was totally oblivious to all of this. And there is Mr. Branson with Mr. Epstein. Yes, two peas in a little pod, right? With their, right down the street, so to speak, right down the ocean street from each other in the Caribbean. Yes, two peas in a pod. All right, there we go. Now, this is, a lot of people have, have never seen this. This is Roger Dean's artwork for Virgin Records, which is how Richard Branson first made his millions. Yes, look at the twins and the red dragon straight out of the book of Revelation. So this is kind of a spin on Mystery Babylon. This is except for twins Babylon, right? And as I mentioned before, Virgin really made its name with the release of Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield, which became very famous in the 70s because it was used for the soundtrack to The Exorcist. I tried listening on a number of different occasions to listen to that entire album, and it is just beyond me. It defeated me every time. But yeah, so there is Mr. Branson and Mr. Epstein, and then Mr. Branson's operation. I bet they had a lot in common. I bet they would have a lot to talk about, a lot of notes to share, right? A lot of notes to share in their day, all right? So there's that. Now, the Synchro Superstorm just would not stop. This entire month, or the first 3 weeks of this month have just been non-stop. I haven't been away from the computer for more than 20 minutes this entire month. The Synchro Superstorm. There is, of course, the famous temple, which we've discussed, modeled on a bathhouse in Aleppo, Syria. Remember that the Shriners use Aleppo on their fezzes, okay? Aleppo. You'll see a lot of Scottish Rite Shriners with Aleppo lodges. And there is the two gods of Atlantis, Atlas and Poseidon. Okay, if you look closely, we'll see them again. Why did Jeffrey Epstein have the two gods of Atlantis on his temple? Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. So this started last week now. I guess this was the first day of Hanukkah, and there was an attack on a Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach. Okay, we've talked about this. The celebration at Bondi Beach. Okay. Now this immediately caught my ear because who's been the center of controversy this entire month and longer than that? Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. Ghislaine Maxwell opposes unsealing of grand jury testimony requested by Pam Bondi. And then the whole Epstein thing. And that's all culminates today. All right. This is brand new information. We're playing current events here, right? Pam Bondi's going to show up again, so just you wait. And as I noted, Atlanta, aka Atlantis, is on the 33rd degree parallel north, and Bondi Beach is on the 33rd degree parallel south, which I find doubly interesting. So something very interesting. I know the 6 and 7s, people are using that term a lot these days. I first heard that term on an episode of Da Vinci's Inquest, and a character on it who is played by, what's his name? I think it's Morris Panich, who was on the X-Files. He played the gray-haired assassin. He had said, I'm all at 6s and 7s, and that's the first time I heard that. That was about 15 years ago now. So that same day, 2 dead, 9 wounded, Brown University shooting. Person of interest in custody who turned out to be just a person of interest. There are a few people of interest. None of them seem to be the actual shooter. This whole clown show with this typical blue city, just absolute farce of leadership in the mayor's office and the police. This is very dangerous. People keep voting for these people. I don't mind if they vote for Democrats, but why do you have to vote for the weakest, silliest, most incompetent Democrats? It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyhow, but the Mayor Brett Smiley, pretty much dead on ringer for the young H.P. Lovecraft, which caught my attention instantly. Remember, I told you that the one thing that I could argue in court as an expert witness is facial similarities, because I had to work on faces for very vain actors and their very protective agents and managers and studio heads for Marvel for 15 years. So I know something about how faces are constructed. All right. So there we go. If he had his hair a little shorter, boy, that would be eerie, right? Very eerie. Brown University could not be more significant in the Lovecraft universe. It is where his collection of papers and letters and manuscripts and all the rest of it is held. S.T. Joshi, who is probably the world's foremost expert on Lovecraft, he and Ramsey Campbell has an operation there, let's just say. So this couldn't be more Lovecraftian if you tried. Never mind this eerie similarity between the mayor, the sad sack mayor, who's just pathetic and ridiculous, and the young H.P. Lovecraft. All right. That night, Rob Reiner and his wife were savagely murdered by their son, their mentally ill drug addict son, Nick. Okay. And for a while, there were a lot of posts floating around on X. This was some sort of mega hit or something ridiculous like that. When I heard that it was the murders were committed with a knife, I knew it was domestic. It could have been, my first thought would be murder-suicide, but this was intimate violence. All right, this was intimate violence. This was not a political hit, as it turned out. It was not. Okay. Now, Stonehenge, which you've seen show up again, and we'll see show up more again, right? Spinal Tap Stonehenge concert movie release on pause for now after Rob Reiner's death. This is the sequel that they did to Spinal Tap, one of the greatest comedies of all time. I'm not terribly impressed by what I've seen of the sequel. The same team, I don't know if Rob Reiner was involved, but Christopher Guest and Michael McKean and Harry Shearer did A Mighty Wind and Best in Show. I think one other. I've never been too crazy about all the non-Spinal Tap things that they've done. Spinal Tap is just one of those once-in-a-lifetime deals. All right. Of course, Christopher Guest is or was married to Jamie Lee Curtis. Okay. Stonehenge was one of the biggest laugh getters in This Is Spinal Tap 1984, right? They mistake inches for feet, and that is the Stonehenge that is built, and we see the two dwarfs. This is taken, I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball just for a moment here. This is taken straight out of Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath had done Stonehenge on, I believe it was on the Born Again album, and they had built replicas that were so huge that they couldn't fit into some of the halls that they were playing. And the two little people dancing around, Ozzy would have little people dancing on stage and say, or just maybe just one say, "Oh, there's Ronnie James Dio, everybody." So this is taken straight out of current events with Black Sabbath and Ozzy at the time. All right, but Stonehenge, yes. Now, Stonehenge is also tied to Atlantis in all the lore, right? This is a novel on the left, but Harry Harrison, Leon Stover, Stonehenge, Where Atlantis Died, a Titanic, the Titans, age of iron heroes, the men of renown and bronze swords, which forged a new world order. My goodness, there's that term, early use of that term, at least publicly. And this is just one example of all the connections with Stonehenge and Atlantis that we also see in Fingerprints of the Gods, okay? Now, reader Helen had pointed this out, this mind-blowing little connection here. Carl Reiner, who is the patriarch of the Reiner clan, had appeared in a night gallery. We talked quite a bit about night gallery this past month, right? Appeared in a night gallery episode, Professor Peabody's Last Lecture, where he calls on the old ones, the great old ones. He basically reads an invocation from the Necromonicon, okay? And maybe that put a curse on the Reiner family that we're just seeing play out now. I don't know, but we see him here about to transform. Now, some of you remember Carl Reiner from Dick Van Dyke. Dick Van Dyke just turned 100 years old this week, which is another interesting little synchronicity that I actually should have included. But Carl Reiner, of course, was showrunner on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and played the character. I'd always get him mixed up with Mel Cooley when I was younger, because they were both bald. But Mel Cooley, of course, had glasses. But yes, so Dick Van Dyke, a century man, right? Okay, so there we go. Another connection for this week. Now, Lovecraft. I got into it again with Jason Colavito, but he shut it down pretty quickly, and I did have some pretty devastating responses, but I chose not to press the issue. He clearly did not want to go there. But anyway, as I've mentioned many times, the entire Cthulhu mythos, great old ones, and all the rest of it, all comes from Theosophy. This is not a secret. This is well known. Mostly, Lovecraft acknowledged Scott Elliott's book, The Story of Atlantis and the Lost Lemuria, which are actually two books that were combined in 1925. And then I've talked about Alice Bailey's first two books, Initiation, Human and Solar, and Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Okay, and I'd made note that Lovecraft was married 4 blocks down from where Lucifer Publishing was. Now, if you're familiar with these places, the Lucis Trust still has a reading room. It's very likely that they had a reading room back then. And of course, the Theosophists had a reading room, which later became a library. So this material was being published while Lovecraft was in New York and would have been easy accessible to him if he just went to a Theosophical Society outpost or to Lucifer's Publishing, who very likely had a reading room. And a lot of these culty bookshops would give their books away, which I became the beneficiary of on various occasions. Now, so we talked about Dick Van Dyke turning 100. We also lost Anthony Geary on the same day as Rob Reiner. They both starred in an episode of All in the Family called A Book by Its Cover. Okay. Now, Anthony Geary became very world famous, I guess you would say, very prominent in the media on General Hospital when he violated Lara on General Hospital, played by Jeannie Francis, who I believe was 16 or 17 at the time. But this, oh my God, this drove me crazy. Girls in school would not shut up about General Hospital. And Luke and Laura, you could not go in any supermarket in any town in the country without seeing Luke and Laura on the cover of Soap Opera Digest or some tabloid. So Anthony Geary, little known today, but was ubiquitous in the early 80s. All right. And of course, this whole story is rather Epsteinian, considering that Jeannie Francis was, believe she was 15 when she started playing Laura. Was it Laura Spencer? I think it was. And then, their whole relationship, such as it was, began when I think she was either 16 or 17. So this was a different time, let's just say, but not out of the Epstein realm, right? Now, I had discovered this. I couldn't believe this. Anthony Geary had been kicking around for a while. He was on this TV movie with Mel Ferrer there. That's him on the right, with the arrow pointing to him. Now, in German, this TV movie was called Abenteuer in Atlantis, right? So there's Atlantis again. So Atlantis is showing up again with Anthony Geary, who dies on the same day as Rob Reiner, who has that connection to Lovecraft via his father, all right? It's just, your head starts to spin. There's another, but the actual name of this film in America was The Return of Captain Nemo, okay? Jose Ferrer, Horst Buchholz, Mel Ferrer, Linda Day George, and Burgess Meredith, the Penguin, okay, in The Return of Captain Nemo. Now, I had just found this out yesterday. A couple days ago, I had this dream where Trump was cosplaying as Captain Nemo in the Aleutian Islands in an underwater White House. I had posted on this on X, so it's a little sync wink for you. All right, so let's get into the synchro echoes, all right? We talked a lot about the Bermuda Triangle, did we not? Well, on December 15th, this story broke where scientists have discovered a mysterious giant structure that's unlike anything else on Earth. Is this the sunken Atlantis? Makes you wonder, right? Apparently there's a huge slab of bedrock, which is why Bermuda, the island of Bermuda, is so stable, okay? But we talked quite a bit about the Bermuda Triangle, and especially its connection to Atlantis. And here we go again. Is that Atlantis, right? Maybe we'll find out one day. And then speaking of Lovecraft, there was the Operation Verdant Force, which had arrested these 4 losers involved in this Turtle Island Liberation Army, one of which an entity called Zachary Page, who calls itself Cthulhu's daughter, which is really kind of interesting. So more kind of, I guess you would say, Zizian energy. That Tina Chen Ting also has a very Zizian jawline as well. Be curious to see how this is all playing out. But there is Cthulhu's daughter, all right? And then this started making the rounds this past week. Apparently an AI image of a giant octopus off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of America, I guess we're supposed to call it now. Larger than anything science has recorded. This was debunked rather quickly, but there is Cthulhu again. So we have Cthulhu's daughter and then Cthulhu himself making the grand entrance into the internet stream, such as it is, right? Tomb Raider, this has been rolled out now. A new Tomb Raider game with a new Lara Croft, The Legacy of Atlantis. Is anyone surprised by now? At this point in our little discussion here, is anyone surprised that the new Tomb Raider is Legacy of Atlantis? Okay, and we're seeing Atlantis all over the place, aren't we? Lara Croft, Lovecraft, Lara Croft. That always bothered me. Like, wait, is that supposed to be something about Lovecraft, Lara Croft? It sounds like a little too close. Of course, Lara is the laurels, the garlands evergreen, the legacy of Atlantis. There we go. Okay. All right. So apparently games are easier today than they were in 1996. That's interesting. On the 17th, 3 days ago now, Ghislaine had asked the court to set aside her conviction for procuring and the like. She's been filing a lot of these briefs, or her lawyers have. Thought I read at some point she was going to be representing herself because she couldn't afford a lawyer. I don't know, something like that. So then this takes us up to the 16th, the SYNCHRO-Storm update. We're going back a day from this story here, but Professor Nuno Loureiro, there's the laurels again, there's the garlands again. MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center Director shot dead in Massachusetts. Leading theorist, fusion energy, right? People have been talking about fusion, cold fusion, 0-point energy, all these things for a very long time now. Apparently it's a dangerous field to be working in. This was on the 16th, all right? This was in Brookline, which we talked about Brookline, didn't we? My old girlfriend being from Brookline in the esoteric live stream. So Brookline again. So there's another little sync for you. Well, here's another one. Trump's Truth Social to merge with fusion startup you've probably never heard of. As part of the deal, Trump Media and Technology Group will give TAE Technologies $300 million in cash to help fund a 50-megawatt commercial fusion electric power plant. So why is this a big deal? Why was this murder, the story about it, so widely disbelieved? We'll get into that briefly. Fusion is becoming a major deal because of data centers and the absolute monstrous needs they have for power, okay, for electricity. So Trump is probably planning an AI operation because he wants to fund a 50-megawatt commercial fusion electric power plant. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Especially I don't believe the story originally broke on the 19th. I believe it broke maybe on the 16th. But what a coincidence, people. What a coincidence. Fusion, okay? Fusion is getting to be a dangerous line to be working in the age of data centers, right? And we discussed how, or I actually mentioned this in a post that Professor Loureiro was murdered on Gibbs Street, his residence at 9 Gibbs Street. Gibbs Street being Directly parallel, a block away, Manchester. You remember how much we talked about Manchester during the live streams earlier this month. Manchester showing up again, all right? And just as a refresher, Alice Bailey was born in Manchester, okay? So there's an interesting connection there. And of course, Manchester is where it all goes down, according to Alan Moore, in Providence. So there's another Providence connection. And there is his comic version of St. Josie behind Johnny Carcosa, right? And the blatant Dana Scully knockoff, Merrill Breers, giving race to a Cthulhu-like Nephilim, right? Nephilim. This whole scenario here reminded me about the something we'll look at in just a moment. But yes, so Providence, Manchester, right? Very interesting connections indeed. It's just mind-boggling. It's just, like I said, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I've never seen a synchro-storm of this intensity and duration in my entire life. Not even after 9/11, okay? Not even after 9/11. Now, plasma and fusion are also very important in the orbs, which many believe are actually constructions of plasma. And the orbs are often seen in New Hampshire. I've seen them myself, okay? So these are believed to be, by some, to be intelligent plasma with intelligence, a new or an old, more accurately, a different life form, a different form of intelligence based in plasma and not in carbon, all right? So there is plasma again. So again, this guy was Plasma Science Center director. Manchester, it's something big is coming at us, people. I just want you to be prepared for that, all right? Maybe that's why I'm doing this live stream. Don't get caught unaware, because something big is steaming towards us at rapid speed. All right, so Iberia, okay, so Portugal. Professor Lorio was from Portugal on the Iberian Peninsula, which is extremely important to our ongoing discussion here. Portugal is especially interesting in the context of this synchro superstorm. One of the suggested places for Atlantis is around the Azores, a group of islands belonging to Portugal located about 900 miles west of the Portuguese coast. Some people believe they could be the mountaintops of Atlantis. Ignatius Donnelly was perhaps the first one to talk about this possible connection in his book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Donnelly also makes a connection to the mythical Aslan, okay? Now, this is from a month ago, but still very pertinent to our discussion here. Massive underwater ruins could be evidence of Plato's lost Atlantis. I mean, I've been hearing these stories since I was a kid, but, hope springs eternal. One day somebody will be right. Team estimates ruins are about 11,000 years old, which would be in the right, certainly in the right time range. Believe they align with Plato's account of Atlantis. Now, this is interesting because this researcher is named Michael Donnellan. And of course, we just talked about Ignatius Donnelly. So we got some serious name game action going on there. But he claims that these ruins can be found. There's a connection with, Donnelly, okay? In the Gulf of Cadiz, okay? Half of which is in Spain and the other half of which is in where? Portugal. So there's all kinds of connections for obvious reasons, considering its location, with Atlantis to Portugal. And this most recent one in the Gulf of Cadiz, which sounds vaguely Lovecraftian to me, is partly in Portugal, maybe about a third of it there, maybe about 2/3 in Spain, a third of it in Portugal, all right? Now we talked about Dagon, right? The Lovecraft adaptation, 2001, Stuart Gordon, Very, very highly recommended if you aren't squeamish. If you are squeamish, stay the hell away. If you aren't squeamish, very, very recommended. But this film was shot in the Spanish village of Cambaro, okay? The Spanish village of Cambaro, which is just north. I mean, it's just a town over, a couple towns over from Portugal itself. So there is Portugal again, and Lovecraft, and Atlantis, and the Deep Ones, and all the rest of it. So this is just way too many connections here. Too many tight connections, too. I mean, this isn't like, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. This is very tight, second and third degree, or if not first degree connections. This is just way too much for me. Something is very much bubbling to the surface, okay? Now, let's talk about Splashdown City, which is my nickname for Dubai. This has been in the news today. It's been in the news this week. Dubai warns residents to stay indoors because of rain. Remember that Dubai is in the desert. It's in the heart of the desert, right? Dubai police on Thursday urged residents to stay indoors unless it was absolutely necessary, as heavy rainfall was expected in the desert country, which saw record downpours last year. Okay, so climate seems to be changing in Dubai, right? In Splashdown City. So my whole this goes back to the earliest days of the Secret Sun, when I thought that Dubai was being built up because it was going to be a welcome center for whoever was dropping in from elsewhere, or maybe from elsewhere, right? Maybe that's where the deep ones are, off the coast of Dubai. So there's a shot, and there's the Burj Khalifa there in the background. There is the flooding in Dubai, okay? Now, this shot was also in the news today. Another dramatic shot of lightning striking the Burj Khalifa, which I'm sure happens all the time, but it's not often that people get good footage of it. Very much reminded me of the tower, of course, for obvious reasons, from that's their rider weight tower deck, right? Very, very interesting. Now, this is why this is so important to me. One of the earliest, this might have been at the point, I think it was this exact moment back in November of 2008 that I was just like, all right, something really, really insanely big is going on in this world that we're not being told about. This, of course, was the opening of the Palm Atlantis in Dubai, all right? And this giant ceremony, and if you watch the footage, it can only be considered a ritual. I mean, it's one of the most explicitly ritualistic things. I mean, it wouldn't be till like 8 years later with the tunnel, the Gotthard Tunnel in Switzerland, that I saw something half as blatant as this, all right? Grand opening of Dubai's Atlantis. And then we had this priestess here, right? Looking like something straight out of a Jack Kirby comic. And then we have the sons of Horus, the Horus kings, all bowing to her, right? I'm hearing all sorts of activity going on. Anyhow. Guest of Atlantis, is it indeed a joyous, this is the priestess here speaking, as tonight we witnessed the birth of an icon, and this was the opening of Atlantis. And then what they did is that they created this huge fireworks display on the Palm, which are these artificial islands off the coast of Dubai, okay? So the rising of Atlantis, and they make mention of Atlantis rising, obviously, in the ceremony ritual in Dubai, which is a very strict Islamic country. Don't ask me to make sense of that. This is why I don't believe in all this religious nonsense. I don't think people at the highest levels believe in any of the religions that we're familiar with. They just don't, okay? None of them. Not a single one of them, all right? Some of them might make a show of it. They don't. If you are in power, you believe in another religion that is not familiar to the world. So here is the palm. Now that should be setting off bells and whistles, particularly with Atlantis rising, because the palm is also known as the phoenix, okay? The phoenix. The date palm is the phoenix, okay? So you understand the symbolism that we're looking at here, okay? Dubai, which is now being flooded, oddly enough. It shouldn't be. It's in the desert. 17 years ago, there's that 17 number again, that was why I would get all these visits from Q people back in 2016, 2017 from Q people, because I was doing 17 back in 2007, okay? Anyhow, this is the phoenix palm, okay? From the Canary Islands, which you remember we discussing, but I'll remind people if you don't. But the another Atlantis. Maybe they're all Atlantis. I mean, Atlantis is supposed to be huge. Maybe they're all Atlantis. I mean, hey, listen, who am I to say? They could all be Atlantis. They're all just parts of Atlantis, right? Mountain that sank beneath the waves discovered off Canary Islands. So there's the Canary Islands and the phoenix, native to the Canary Islands, right? The date palm. Yes, and canary here is not the bird, it's a dog. So there are the dog days again. It's the Spanish canis or the Latin canis. That is the origin of canary, okay? The dog, the very terrifying dogs, the Canis canaris, that make Rottweilers look like poodles, toy poodles. So another Atlantis. And this, similar to the Azores, but belongs to Spain, okay, not Portugal. Now, who swam to the Siren off the coast of the Canary Islands in 1994? 1991. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, lover, and trainer. Yes, off the Lady Ghislaine, his super yacht. The Lady Ghislaine. And there he is. Bought it. Swam to the Siren off the coast of the Canary Islands, right? And of course that folds in this phoenix palm symbolism. Oh, and also one thing that I mentioned when I did the 9/11 decoding is that the Winter Gardens at the World Financial Center are all lined with palms, okay? Rebirth, okay? The phoenix, the rebirth. And we discussed how the phoenix is actually Lyra, okay? The phoenix is a depiction of Lyra. Some have linked it to the Bennu bird of Egypt, probably connected in some ways, but this is Lyra, all right? There it is. And showed you here that there is Lyra rising from the ashes of the Milky Way, okay? The clouds and dust and nebula and all the rest of it. And at the sun is Vega. Now, Vega is extremely important, as we saw before. Hence, heaven upside down in Las Vegas, right? Vega, Lyra, okay? Lyra was the Vega. Well, Lyra was the constellation, but Vega was the pole star when the ice caps were melting and the seas rose. And as many believed, how Atlantis was wiped out because of the melting of the polar ice or the northern ice of the Ice Age, right? Vega was the pole star during the time of Atlantis. At least according to many beliefs, okay? Vega was the pole star. Now we understand why Vega was so important to the gods, the founding fathers, more accurately, of the new Atlantis, the new Atlantis being the United States of America. Vega was obviously extremely important to them. They put it on their official documents. It's encoded into both sides of the Great Seal. Vega was deeply, deeply associated with the glory days of Atlantis, and that's why it was venerated by the creators of the new Atlantis, okay? The new Atlantis. Now, this is 2 days ago. This chap here, NASCAR driver, retired NASCAR driver named Greg Biffle, crashed in their Cessna, Statesville Regional Airport in North Carolina, just north of Charlotte, which was obviously in the news over the summer, okay? This guy died. Now, where was he headed? He was headed to Treasure Cay in the Bahamas, just across the water from Bimini. Yes, Bimini, which we talked about. What is the significance of Bimini? Well, can you hear that? Can you hear that? All those sirens? Sirens, right? Bimini. Yes, the Bimini Road. Edgar Cayce predicted in 1938 that 30 years in the future, Atlantis would begin to rise from the depths, and that's when Bimini Road was discovered, okay? When Bimini Road was discovered, which many identify with Atlantis, including Charles Berlitz, whose company was bought out by who? Robert Maxwell. It's a big club, and we ain't in it, okay? It's all in the family. No pun intended. All right, let's go back to Lovecraft country. This is the clown show, the Providence clown show. I mean, these people just all of them just seem utterly absurd. The police chief and all of them, the mayor there, just ridiculous clown show. Somebody on Reddit had given a tip that they had spotted the car of the suspected assassin of Professor Loriot. This is the Brown University. Same difference, same thing, right? Had spotted the car. A homeless Brown University graduate. Oh my God. All the king's horses and all the king's men. It took a homeless guy to break this case wide open, so to speak. And there is I have nothing but the absolute highest contempt for everyone you see on screen right now. First of all, why do we have to, in the age of closed captioning, why do we have to have sign language interpreters? I think this is all a make-work program, okay? Look at that person. Reminds me of that woman from Providence there. We talked about the issue of Alan Moore's comic there. But just these weak men who just have no presence. They just seem like weak and soft and passive. And then this fool, the head of Brown University security, who apparently had lied on his resume, and this other fool police chief who apparently was somehow connected to drug cartels in Colombia. I mean, this is just the reality of life in today's blue cities. It's just absurd. These men are all weak. They're all incompetent. And it's not good. It's pathetic and very, very troubling for the future of these cities, because when the money's flowing, you can have losers like these three in the center there running the show. These people are anything but anti-fragile, okay? Anything but anti-fragile, but that's enough of that. Anyway, Claudio Neves Valente, 48-year-old Brown University student, and Portuguese national, suspected Brown University shooter, apparently knew the professor back in Portugal. I guess had a personal gripe. This was the man who they said was the killer. And where did they find him? Right in the heart of Lovecraft country. So he goes from the heart of Lovecraft country south to the heart of Lovecraft country north. All right. Brown University, which Lovecraft based Miskatonic University on. Where's the Merrimack River there? It's got to be there somewhere. The real life Miskatonic. Maybe about, how many, 4 miles as the crow flies from America's Stonehenge, Mystery Hill, that's also name-checked in the Call of Cthulhu. I mean, come on. What the hell's going on here? Ghislaine and her little Lovecraft country tour, and this guy. And by the way, you see Route 93 there. Right around this area is where we saw the Orbs in 2015, 10 years ago. See Providence Hill there. My goodness. This is just, what is going on here? And just to show you, this is this accused killer's travels from Brown University to MIT to Salem, New Hampshire. Okay, and as we see here, this is the eastern tip of Lovecraft country. There we have Manchester by the Bay and all the rest of it, but it's all just to the east of this fella's travels up Route 93. Okay, well, I guess he took 95 up to 93. All right, 93, 93, 93 shall be the whole of the law, right? All right, so my personal theory is that this was all about Atlas, of course, which gave his name to Atlantis, all right? This is what I think this is all about. Yesterday morning, the strikes in Syria in retaliation for the attack at Palmyra, something that old school Secret Sun readers should be very familiar with via the Palmyra Gate, all right? The Baal Gate, Baal Hadad, I believe. Baal Hadad is associated with the Palmyra Arch, right? And the gate had framed in the Capitol building there during the whole clown show with Brett Kavanaugh. Okay, Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, we just live in a world of insane ritualists. Okay, that's all there is to it. Also yesterday, Avatar, Fire and Ash, fire and rising from the ashes, rising from the ashes and flames. And look at the feathers there. So we have some more Phoenix symbolism here. These Avatar films are god-awful. I only saw the first one. You would have to time into a chair to see the others, but apparently this one is worse than the other two. But of course, Avatar is a term that comes from Hinduism by way of who? Who popularized the term avatars? Well, the Theosophists, including Alice Bailey. This is from the treatise on cosmic fire, cosmic avatars, solar avatars, interplanetary avatars, planetary human avatars. It's just one thing after another, guys. It's just, I've been talking about this stuff for years, and nobody seems to believe me except for guys guys and gals like you. Very small group of people actually believe, and it's so predictive, I mean, you can just predict how this is all going to play out. But here are the Phoenix birds in Avatar. If you get a chance, go on YouTube and watch Mark Kermode's review of this film. It is absolutely hilarious. He hated it so intensely. Everything that he said about this film, I agree on as far as the first film. This movie is 3 hours and 10 minutes, which is basically 2 normal movies together. Who wants to sit and watch this garbage for almost 3.25 hours? It's insanity. But it's all ritual. Avatars, Fire and Ash. Of course, avatars are basically walk-ins. It's the same thing, with some god or demigod or deity takes possession. It's spirit possession. It's walk-ins, which is exactly what you see allegorized in these films. I mean, these films are about walk-ins, aren't they? They're about people taking control of these primitives, these alien primitives. So this is how James Cameron chose to observe the approach of Atlas Atlantis, right? Apparently the Geminids had also peaked, so there is our twin symbolism. This lovely photo here, time-lapse photo of the Geminids that ran yesterday. I believe this is from space.com. So we get the twinning yet again, which is also connected to avatars, right? And, of course, to Epstein, right? Comet 31 Atlas reaches its closest point to Earth yesterday. All right? Thursday to Friday, closest to Earth. And that's when the whole Epstein shebang gets unleashed upon us. So there's still a lot of controversy about Atlas. Is it artificial? It seems to have strange characteristics, strange behaviors. But of course, it is interstellar, so who knows? I don't know. I don't care. I really don't care. I'm so tired of these people with this nonsense. It's absurd. If bad things weren't done to make these observations, I would be amused by it. But I'm tired of the misery and bloodshed that seems to accompany these events. Anyway, 3I Atlas, right? Which did. Oh, I will just point this out. It was first spotted on my birthday, so that's interesting. There you go. Little personal sync there. Now, this is said to have come from the direction of Sagittarius, okay? Sagittarius being the first horseman, the horseman of war and conquest, the archer, right? The pale horse. That is Sagittarius, okay? This is why I believe, for who knows whether this thing actually came from Sagittarius. It's beyond me how they decide these things, but this could all be entirely ritualistic. This could all be about getting the blessings of the gods in the stars for the launching of World War III in 2026, which would not surprise me if we started seeing massive hostilities break out after the new year, okay? Behold, the pale horse is Sagittarius, right? It's Sagittarius, Antares is the second. That's the red one. And the scales, obviously, is Libra. And the other one is Centaurus. Okay, those are the four horsemen, right? That's what John is referring to. And then the dump comes last night. AOC's... Listen, all the controversy that we're seeing, everybody who's playing into this ongoing controversy with these files is just playing unpaid assistant to the ritualistic masters. I mean, I think at this point AOC has probably been read in on maybe not what the agendas are, but that she should, play ball when she's told to. And that's why she's weighing in on this. And, of course, Massey is, and Marjorie Greene. I mean, all these representatives who most people think are very fringe are all trying to pigtail on this whole storyline. I guess all the others, like people like Candace and all the rest of them are on the Charlie Kirk story, all right? Again, a story I could be less interested in. So we got an inside look at Epstein's various digs here, right? And then we saw some of the artwork and the furniture, the furnishings and so on, and had very interesting tastes. Sort of reminds me of trumps Greco-Roman obsessions in some ways, but maybe a little bit more neoclassical, a little bit more Art Deco in some ways. Here's this strange picture of these young girls, seem to be topless. One seems to have the skirt down there. I don't know where this picture was taken, but do note the Navy pants there. The Navy, right? Is that Old Navy or New Navy? I don't know. Very interesting. Again, I could be less interested in all the prurient details of this. And I think a lot of the interest people have in this is the prurient aspect of it, which I find distasteful. But then there's this bookshelf here. We see a serpentine column. Now that whole motif is based on the serpent column erected at Delphi in ancient times, and I believe now it is in Istanbul. Okay, so the two columns there, right, which could also be Boaz and Jachin, but in this context, I don't believe they are. I believe they are the pillars of Hercules. Okay, I believe that this is what we're seeing here, the pillars of Hercules, because of Epstein's Poseidon statue in the front of his temple. How much more blatant does it need to be? Ask yourself, seriously. When a guy's got statues of Poseidon and Atlas in front of this temple, as they call it, how much more obvious does it need to be? But there is the pillars of Hercules, okay? Plus ultra. If you know your Tracy Twyman, you know all about this, right? And there they are. There are Atlas and Poseidon and the temple based on the Aleppo bathhouse, which is connected to the Shriners, and the twin cockatoos on the roof. Everybody said they are owls, the same way that people said the owl is Moloch. I'm very seriously considering going to war on bad conspiracy theory, because I think it really makes people stupid. It makes me incredibly angry. I'm just so after 35 years of this stuff, there's no excuse for people to be as stupid as they are. I'm very seriously considering doing something that would be a massive takedown on all the trash tier conspiracy theory, like people saying those owls when they're clearly cockatoos, all right? Anyhow, the Pillars of Hercules, the New Atlantis, Roger Bacon, right? We talked about this. There they are, okay? The New Atlantis, right? Pillars of Hercules, which is the southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula and the northern tip of Africa. All right? Francis Bacon, the Viscount of St. Alban, all right? Credited with creating the United States of America by people who would know better, and also credited by some to be the real William Shakespeare, okay? And there they are, the Pillars of Hercules, all right? Not to be confused with Boaz and Jachin, which are celestial markers. Boaz and Jachin are Castor and Pollux, the Gemini. But then again, the Geminids. Oh my goodness. The Geminids, the Gemini, Boaz and Jachin, Pillars of Hercules. It's all in the family, like I said. Maybe that's what I should have called this, all in the family. And of course, the sundial, the massive sundial there. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what you think their ethnicity is. This guy was not Jewish. He did not practice Judaism. All right? None of this has anything to do with Judaism. All right? Just put it out of your mind. All these, whether it's leaders in the Arab world, leaders in Europe, in whatever country, they don't practice the religions of the people. They have their own religion. Thank you very much. They like it. They're going to stick to it. These people do not practice the religions that we know about. They just don't. All right. Just stop thinking that way. Just completely put it out of your mind. And then this is from the temple. Now, this was absolutely fascinating to me. This is, well, just to make clear, this is Epstein. Epstein had a star map. This is either on the roof or the ceiling of his temple. I haven't been able to nail that down prior to showtime, but we see all, we see Puppis, we see Centaurus, which I mentioned before, we see Lupus, we see Libra, we see Orion, we see the Canuses, we see Cancer, we see Leo, we see the Gemini, we see the Bear, the Ursus, we see Perseus, we see Pegasus, Cygnus, Corona Borealis. It's just the Southern Cross we see, Crux, Mosca. There it all is. Everybody goes, when, Chris started talking about this star stuff about 8 years ago or so. Why was he talking about all the star stuff? Because that's what it's all about. It's not astrology. It's star magic. It's stellar magic. It's stellar ritualism. Okay, that's what this is. Oh my God! How many times do I have to say it? I'm not kidding, man. I hope people will forgive me. I'm just getting so frustrated. Because I just keep telling everybody what this is all about. And how predictive it is. And people want to listen to, Space Brothers or, whatever nonsense, Q, or whatever. I don't know. I think I'm going to start being much, much more aggressive in 2026 because, first of all, I'm just like really tired. I'm just physically tired by all this stuff. It's exhausting. Just seeing the same, like Project Bluebeam, which I debunked conclusively 15 years ago, and people still talk about it like it's real. It's not real. It's a hoax. Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm so, I don't mean to, I hope nobody's offended, but I'm so frustrated because I've been telling people what's really going on and so few people care. People just want to hear exciting stories. But anyway, you see here, and then we see here. It's the same symbolism, obviously, the constellations. That's there's no decoder needed here. I'm just curious by why the globe is circling these particular constellations. That really fascinates me. Is that I was going to say that's the galactic plane, but it's not. It's very weird. It's all like inverted but mirrored. Very, very interesting. I'm going to do some more work on this because this fascinates me. But again, this is from Epstein's famous temple. And everybody says was this, everybody says was that. I've been telling everybody that this is what they're all about, is stellar magic. Whether it's the Freemasons, it's all over the Bible, it's the Kabbalah, it's you name it, all right? It's all the stars for one reason or the other. And there are several reasons that we can talk about, but it's all stellar. I'm sorry. I don't mean to step on anybody's toes. But here we go. It's the same symbolism we see here. The Economist, which is always good for some obnoxious occult symbolism on their world head issues. This is clearly riffing on the constellations by hemisphere, as we see here. And we even see some of the same symbolism with the boats and such. The world ahead of war, they're telling you exactly what's coming in the world ahead in 2026. World war, all right? World war. That's why we see several tanks and missiles and vaccines and all the other weapons of mass destruction. And see that boat there. Why is there that boat there, right? That old boat. Well, that's Puppis, which we see right here, the Argo. The Argo, all right? That's what we see here in this constellation depicted, the Argo, and there it is there. So this is all, again, stellar symbolism, because that's what they all base their belief systems on, okay? Also today, oh, yes, Jeff Bezos' flying phallus is unleashed. The new shepherd boy, the Buckley, Blue Origin. I haven't read about this launch because I just so don't care. But, you know, the obvious big, giant phallus. Where did he get that idea from? Well, maybe he got it from John Brockman, who was Epstein's science guru. All right, so there he is. And we won't talk about Bezos' his wife. She's a very interesting individual. But there is we talked about this, the original logo for Blue Origin, which is straight out of Sumer. Straight out of Sumer, okay? As we see here, the turtle in Mesopotamian mythology, the turtle or the tortoise or whatever you want to call it, the terrapin, primary symbolism of Enki, Sumerian god of wisdom, fresh water, and magic, representing his cunning and patient nature. Well, these people are certainly cunning and patient. I think that their plans and stuff are insane and stupid, but what are you going to do? But there it is, Jeff Bezos, the phallus, Epstein Island, the Sumerian symbolism there and there, okay, which all, so just to bring this all full circle, the Necromonicon, written by Peter Lavenda, was based very heavily in Sumerian texts, not from Sumer, but I believe from the Assyrian period or the Neo-Assyrian period, the Maklu and the Shirpu. All right, if you just read those texts and then read the Necromonicon, you know where it all comes from. Babylon, yes, Babylon. So there's Babylon symbolism again, okay, Blue Origin. So as I said before, all of this is about the return or the rising or the rescue, whatever you choose to frame it as. The old gods, the Anunnaki, who were banished to the underworld by the new gods, right? The Titans, the Watchers, Atlantis, it's all the same symbolism, right? Because the Atlanteans were not us. They were a different race than us. They were a different root race than us. Both Blavatsky and Alice Bailey agreed on it, as did Scott Elliott, okay? The return of the old heroes, the Nephilim, right? The men of renown, the old gods. It's all one big happy family, right? Alice Bailey talking about how the Watchers who fell were the good guys, right? Because it was the divine plan emanating from the mind of God and swept into activity and progressive unfoldment by an act of his will at its inception that took place, the original war in the heavens, when the sons of God who responded to the divine urge to experience, to serve, to sacrifice, separated themselves from the sons of God who responded to no such inspiration, but who chose to stay in their original and high state of being, right? These are the gods who left the angels. Well, gods and angels, I mean, it's all the same thing. All the angels were just ancient gods who were repurposed as angels, right? Well, they're not gods, they're helpers of the one God. It's all the same thing. This all comes from Zoroastrianism. The angels were unknown in Hebrew writings before the Babylonian captivity, okay? It's all just, actually Acharya she argued very persuasively that the patriarchs were all Canaanite gods who were basically remade as the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel, right? But all the symbolism corresponds to the zodiac as you would expect, as you see in the Olympian gods and all the rest of it, okay? But this is all about bringing back the old the old reality, so to speak, right? Getting rid of all this freedom and democracy stuff and restoring the old hierarchies, right? What's the name of that book by Alice Bailey? It's the some about the hierarchy. I'll have to look that up. Sorry, just kind of winging it here. And of course, the new group of world servers of the Lucis Trust, Lucifer Publishing, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? And we saw the whole connection to COVID, which I don't need to remind anybody of, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? How many times does Bill Gates have to appear in the Epstein files before people question his interest in saving the world? Okay. Bill Gates, some might argue, I will not argue that here, some might argue that he is part of the wiping the slate clean agenda, right? With all the rest of it. COVID-19, okay? And 19, the day that Atlas, 12/19, right? 19 seems to be very important. 19 is also the metonic cycle. 19 years is the metonic cycle of the moon, right? So 19 is very important. And like I said, it's all about the old realization, the old ones, the old gods, the old angels, the old titans, the old Anunnaki, the old men of renown, whomever. The restoration of the old hierarchies, of the old order. The old order, the New World Order being the old world order, okay? And I often liken it to Babylon and Mesopotamia, where you had basically a totalitarian state where the priesthoods ran everything, right? They ran, obviously, the temples, but they were also hugely influential in the governments, and they ran all the guilds and the farms and the factories and all the rest of it. It was basically ancient communism, which is interesting because of the five-pointed star of Ishtar was repurposed by the communists. All right, so there we go. The externalization of the hierarchy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, as I said, an hour and a half on the nose. Good job, Chris. Good job. As promised, hour and a half. So, there we have it, folks. All right. So there we go. That is our presentation for today. As I've said, in summation, what was this all about? It was all about this visitor from the first horseman, the Behold a Pale Horse, Sagittarius, Galactic Center, right? All that good stuff. Corona Borealis. No, that's Corona Austrine. I'm sorry. The southern. Right below the ecliptic. Oh my goodness. Oh yes, the Odyssey. With who? Samantha. I'm surprised she's not playing a Sybil. They should have had her playing a Sybil, or at least a siren, right? But I guess that would have been a little too on the nose for some people, right? For some people. So the archive will be available, and I will timestamp it for everyone. Just got to do that. Give me about an hour or so to do that. And we'll get that going. Yeah, my head's been spinning for a month. Root Node said, my head is spinning. That was quite the presentation. My head's been spinning for a month. I mean, come on. This is like... Oh, there's all this other stuff I wanted to get done this month, too. It's like, come on. They won't leave me alone. I keep trying to get out, and they keep dragging me back in. Listen, we're not done with Lovecraft by a long shot. By a long shot, because we still have to do the Shimmer, right? We have to do Color Out of Space and Annihilation and Stalker, especially since all three of those films have huge connections to Elizabeth. We're going to do Providence. We're going to do the Lovecraft trilogy. We'll put it all in one. I'll do the Courtyard, Necromonicon, and Providence all together. Because it might get a little too granular for people. I mean, they're awfully dense books. Yeah, we're not done with Lovecraft, but I also want to get back into dreaming too. At some point, maybe after the new year, I will repost the dreaming live stream. Oh gosh, I had a dream last night. I've been having extremely vivid dreams again. About Mondami's, New York, and the Cull centers. I'm gonna. I'll put that up on X. It's too much to go through, but it was extremely vivid and extremely unsettling. Hermes and Hermeticism fall into this. Who knows? Azathoth, you know. I don't know. I guess you could say that there are connections between Enki and Hermes, right? I think the Hermes stuff is a little too eggheady for these people, you know. It's a little too nerdy and you know, not action oriented enough. See me on the really big podcast. Well, I think I would just melt some of those people down, to be honest with you. They just want to hear, people just want to hear like familiar stories that are, scary stories that they're familiar with. Because when you really get down to it, so much conspiracy theory is about emotional regulation, you know. It's the same thing with horror. It's basically just a different, people watch horror movies, right? For emotional, it's like, it's scary and it's upsetting and stressful, but it's not what they're really scared and upset and stressed by, right? So it helps regulate their anxieties. Oh. So who asked that question? Aphrodite, what's the purpose of all this? It's ritual magic, sympathetic magic. It's all based, as I've said many times before, it's all based in sympathetic magic. It's all about either manufacturing or manipulating synchronicity. It's all, it's pretty well spelled out in any decent magical text you can find. I don't mean like a grimoire, but I mean like, an analysis and discussion of ritual magic. There's never been any culture or society in human history that hasn't practiced some kind of ritual magic. There just isn't. This is just humanity. This is just how humanity works. So, there we go. Have I ever played Oblivion? Haven't heard of it. Book club for VIP valedictorian. If I can get enough people, I would like to do more, stuff with VIPs and valedictorians, but it's hard to kind of build up the critical mass that you really want to get. You know, I mean, I would love to, and maybe, you know, I think what we should do is have a little discussion, have a nice Zoom call with VIPs and valedictorians, and we can really start getting into, like, you know, what do we want to do as far as like really advancing the discussion. I'm all for it. I'm totally up for it. Oh. Well, my problem with Austin is that it's like the can's always getting kicked down the road. I mean, this was supposed to be the year, like 2025 was supposed to be the year that everything just really went kablooey. So I don't know. It's, you know, no one shall know the time and day, right? It's like, it's not up to us. You know, there's certain predictions we can make on certain patterns, right? But how often do people just make fools of themselves by saying, okay, this is going to happen today? You know, it happens all the time. Elder Scrolls games, Oblivion being one of them. All right, well, listen. Until it all blows up, we've got plenty of time to you know, we'll get to all of it. You know, I've been in reactive mode. You know, I've just been constant reacting to things in the news. So that's really where it's been at, because there's been so much. You know, been doing, like, you know, a lot of these like really in depth, super mega synchro storms. You know, the Anhesh. It's like I keep forgetting that Anhesh was this year, wasn't it? Oh gosh. Yeah, the soap opera storylines. See, you know, I noticed this a long time ago. You know, I this salacious stuff just it often brings in the wrong elements. You know, it brings people in who you just have different agendas, I guess you would say. You know, bluntly put, I mean, people just get off on it, which is disturbing to me. Cult leaders are always in trouble when the aliens don't show up. Well, yeah, the aliens have a really bad habit of not showing up when they're called on, don't they? Great set of work this year. Deep dives. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, I do want to give people, you know, advanced synchromysticism, advanced symbolism, advanced everything, you know. That's kind of my brand. And one of the reasons being is that I just don't like, the level of discourse that takes place in the non-advanced realms from time to time. Let's just put it that way. You know, I just I don't, maybe it's just like I have very little patience for nonsense, I guess you would say. You are welcome, Sham. 1 year ago was, oh my gosh. Yeah, so there've been a lot of like big synchro storms. That thing was huge. Whew. Yeah. Canada is just going to end up being a protectorate of the U.S. It's inevitable, you know. It's inevitable. my brain, people always told me like my brain works differently. And I guess I have no context for that because it's just the way my brain works. But I guess you're right. I've heard that enough that I have to agree. Yeah, the map is crazy. As soon as I saw that, I was just like, all right, enough, enough dithering. We know exactly what's going on here. We know what this is. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm glad our friends in the UK could join in. The UK needs all the help it can get. Our friends in the UK need your support. Oh man. So, yeah, there were all these things that I wanted to do this month, and this always happens. I'll go, hey, I'm going to do this, and then like I'll just get hammered by all this other stuff going on. So if you ever wonder why I'll announce things and then they either show up much later or they haven't shown up yet, it's because I got knocked off my perch. my rhythm was upset by all these other things going on. When all these big stories are breaking in the news, I have to respond to them, because what's the point otherwise? Otherwise it's just, it's navel gazing. If we're not engaging with the world outside, then it's not really synchronicity. Yeah, Germany, you can go to jail for criticizing the government as well. I have nothing but scorching contempt for everyone in a position of power in every single European country. I don't know, maybe Hungary, maybe not Hungary, Poland. There are a couple like Central European countries that aren't as despicable as Germany and France and England and all the rest of it. The big three are just nauseatingly disgusting. I have nothing but hatred for Keir Starmer and Macron and whatever that egghead in Germany is named. Life is what happens when we're making other plans. Exactly. Yeah. 2-minute warning, folks. 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. I hope the sound's better. I set up this special plug-in for the mic, so I hopefully the sound is better than it was in the past. Mertz, yeah. I don't know who that is. To me, he just looks like somebody who needs to be punched in the face repeatedly. Thank you, Janet. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Oh, my goodness. The old forums. What forums are those? I'm not, I got lost here. All right. Thank you very much, Thor. Thank you. Okay, okay, Glenn, that's really obscure. All right.